Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. My name is Samaria and I'm joined by my best friend and co host.
Miosha.
And today we are reviewing the most boring season of Love is Blind. The season that, like, I'll say it doesn't feel like work watching these shows and coming on here and talking to my best friend about the shows. It was a struggle. I felt like it was punishment watching these 6 episodes. I don't know how you felt.
It was definitely slow to start. It did get better. It did pick up, but only like towards 5 and 6. And so to have 4 hour plus long episodes, that was the thing. Like I would start watching and then be like 10 to 12 minutes in, and then it says, "Oh, you still have 52 minutes left." It's like,
Girl, I was watching on 1.5 speed,
oh, a
which I
must,
never
a
do.
must.
But even then, I was like, dang, they don't have 2 times speed. Like even
Not too
1.5 was
hard.
too slow. I kid you not.
I've never watched that 1.5 speed because in the past I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss anything and I like to write things down
Yes.
verbatim. But yeah, this one I think there was a lot of long pauses, a lot of I was able to listen to more of the lyrics this season than
In
ever
the
before.
songs.
I'm
Yes.
like, what is going maybe it's a thing where they're like, okay, we heard y'all complaining about how you feel like you didn't get to see enough of certain conversations and certain people, but it's like, no, last season, like Houston or Charlotte, where we needed to see more conversations, like with AD and Clay to see how deep they dug, that's when we needed to see more. This, not so much. But here we are.
It was, and the conversation with, first of all, okay, if you got through that, go ahead and subscribe to our channel.
Hmm.
Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave us a comment or two or three. Sometimes people are like, sorry for commenting too much.
We don't
No, it's
mind.
not too much because
Hmm.
we love to hear the thoughts, even the thoughts that disagree with us.
Hmm.
Like, we're all viewers of the same
Yeah.
show and we should be able to voice our opinions. So
And it's
we
all
don't
in
mind.
fun, y'all.
It is
This
all
is
in, we don't know
reality
these
TV.
people at all. I don't listen. I could love somebody today and tomorrow forget their name. I kid you not. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, first impressions.
Oh, and we'll just say we're not gonna go through every person that appeared. It's just way too many people. We found
Mhm.
ourselves struggling keeping track of names with faces because so many of these people look similar. And
Mhm.
so we're gonna jump to some of the people as individuals and some high level things we may have thought of them if they ended up being paired. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
All right.
Perfect. So, who do you want to start with?
Let's start with maybe Daniel. So he's 29, he's a sales manager. And the biggest takeaway I had from him is that he keeps talking about his height and how short he was, and
Hmm.
that one of his sisters was born blind, and how that taught him a lot having a special needs sibling. But this thing about height comes up a lot
So
as
many
we
times.
see throughout the season. So,
Hmm. Yeah, he also, I noted, was talking a lot about, oh, I'm looking for a family. I want a
mhm.
family. And so I'm like, okay, very interesting. It seems like that is something that he's eagerly awaiting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all I had on him initially.
Yeah, and then the next one, maybe we could talk about Devin. He seems to be the youngest of the men.
D-Buck.
Yeah,
Hmm.
D-Buck, he's 28, youth director slash coach. He currently coaches a girls team. He says he doesn't mind dating older women, which we later see he
Hmm.
pairs with two women who are 34. And so we
Yeah.
could talk more about the whole age difference and I guess like what makes him, I guess, go after maybe older women. I found
Did
that
he
to be
have many
interesting.
options in? I don't know. Did he have a lot of options in this season? It seems like he gravitates toward people who are from a certain
Right.
race, and so we didn't in this season. In the picture, I saw maybe 4 or 5
Mm-hmm.
black women, but we only see 2 of them interacting in the pods,
Right.
which is another thing this season. And we would show pictures of these guys, but it's so hard to distinguish even with the pictures right in front. Like I was watching the show and couldn't distinguish Alex from Dave
Dave, yeah,
or
Dave and
Ben or
Daniel.
whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so D Buck, I thought he was really cool. You know, his faith thing came up. I think he's a youth pastor.
Mm, I said youth director. He could be a youth pastor.
Oh,
I
youth
didn't bring up
director.
that he was in the church like that, but he may have been. I don't know. Girl, we watching on 1.5 speed, so.
No, at this point I wasn't. At this point, it was just dragging me.
Yeah, so forgive us on the details if, we don't get everything perfect. But the
Yeah.
last person I was going to bring up of as just an individual was David. And yeah, he came, I feel like, out of the gate swinging. I don't know if that was his strategy, but either way, he's 32, works in medical sales. He says that, well, one of the things he does in all the dates is like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? And why are you here?
Or if they're 30 or older, he's like, "Oh, so your time is running out."
I don't know if maybe he thought that that was funny, but he talks about how working in cosmetic surgery or aesthetics has affected how he views women's bodies and maybe how they actually look versus how they should look, and that he thinks this experiment would help him with that. I wrote, maybe this is something you should be working through independent of an experience that quickly leads to engagement and love. Like, let's not use this experiment to do that. Practice in the real world, not in here with women who are eagerly looking to be engaged.
You know, and that's the issue that I had with him all throughout was he was using this experiment as his playground, and we don't want to see that. Like if you know, oh, I'm shallow, hey, be shallow enough in the outside world. Like do that outside of here. Don't come into this experiment saying, "Oh, I want this experiment to fix me." Because guess what? After these 10 days in the pods, you are still going to end up having to have a real life living situation with this person if you succeed. So I hate when people do that.
And he all but said that he didn't expect for anything to come of this. So it almost seems as though he's here to just have the experience, to have fun. Even later when he starts to talk about his sister's reaction to this whole thing, I get the impression that he's just doing this for fun and he never, I guess, thought it could actually lead to anything serious.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
didn't come in too serious. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So now do we want to do the couples? We're only going to do the couples who ended up together or who we saw. It's just hard to figure out how to navigate
yeah.
with this season with 6 episodes in the pods with people who
So
look similar.
So I think where we could start is maybe his first date with Molly. So Molly is a 29-year-old executive assistant. And my takeaway from this first date, he does get vulnerable talking about his mom's passing. He also opens up about this lack of integrity that he has had. I would have asked him to, well, expound upon that. And I think we do find out a little bit more later on. So this is an early connection for him. He also slips up and let her know that he's a white boy. He's like, oh, I had the typical white boy upbringing or something like that, he said. And I'm like, this is Love is Blind. What?
She would have known. There was everything about him. The fact that you don't even care about first impressions so much so that you come into a space giving off the worst impression and still you're able to match with people because, these women aren't taking you at face value. I think his whole demeanor gives away who he is. Also, they're in Minnesota, which
The privilege, yeah.
is Minneapolis at least is more diverse than what I think the show is giving us. But you
Yeah.
know, who am I? I've never been there. I only know people who live there. So
Yeah. And then if you want, you could talk a little bit about your impressions of Molly, who he matched with pretty early on, the executive assistant. She's
I was
29.
yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it was a red flag that she hadn't had any boyfriends and didn't see any point in it. So, on the one hand, I'm like, okay, yeah, if you're able to determine someone isn't worth your time early on, yeah, don't go into that relationship. But the fact that she's like, oh, I don't see a point in it,
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
like,
why
okay,
do I need it?
right.
Why
Like
are
you
you
get to
here?
practice. Right, exactly. Like you get to practice, being in a relationship if you have a relationship to practice in.
Yeah,
So,
really honing in. What do you like? What don't you like? And sometimes
yes.
it is you being in certain situations that push you to learn these things about yourself. So her, once again, I think something she almost kind of has in common with David is this lackadaisical, take it or leave it type of attitude. And I think that is an area where they seem to have bonded. And just things being fun. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Neither one of them taking it serious.
Yeah, and I don't mind showing a picture of Molly, because the girls don't look as much alike in my opinion, but
this is Molly. Yeah,
this is Molly. All right, so that's Dave and Molly. Who next? Should we do
Lauren? I think we should pull in Lauren, the education sales, because she also has an early connection with David.
And I was disappointed in her because he did come out swinging with her and was a jerk. And she was like, I don't know if she was the one who said, should I leave?
He is the one who said that.
So, like, sometimes we need to trust our first mind, because there's nothing, if he's willing to come out like that, you don't want to see him on his worst days.
Yeah, I don't know if part of her thought it was flattering or cute. I don't know. Maybe her sense of humor is in line with that as well. But I didn't get that vibe from her. She talks about missing this puzzle of her life, how she really is yearning for a romantic partner and wanting a family. So the vibe I get from her is she's taking this very seriously.
Yeah, it was funny. He was like, oh, I'll be a little nicer to you. Oh, lucky her.
Don't be play mean with me. Use kitten gloves.
You don't even know me yet. Like, you could do that when we know each other and I know you're joking.
Right.
But don't do that if we don't know each other. We're not familiar.
And I think with enough reality TV at this point, we've seen where because these people don't know each other, they come out of the gate sometimes joking, quote unquote, about things. You don't know these people well enough to be joking. You end up offending people unnecessarily. Yeah, I don't know. She seemed eager about him, and I was kind of questioning why. Like, why him, girl? Well, any man do? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And this is them for the record.
Yeah, this is Lauren and David.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So then we have the couple,
the triangle. Yeah.
The triangle, Alex, Madison, and
Mason. Yes.
And actually, the quad.
Well, yeah, it's a quad, but I think we leave Meg for after we talk about Mason.
Okay. So Alex and Mason. So Alex and Madison, sorry. So Alex was talking about how he was unattractive as a child, and now women are giving him more attention. And it reminded me of that one guy who was in the season with Uche Houston. He was dating Johnny.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I don't remember his name. But either way, he says women are giving him more attention now, which, I mean, I guess he thinks he's a looker at this point in his life. If he thinks it, I'll be props to him.
Yeah. I mean, subtle things like that can give the impression of like you had this major glow up and that you're very attractive now. I don't know. Based off what I see of him later on, I don't think he said that to manipulate her on anything. I just think it could be taken as, when people try to give subtle hints about how good they look now, maybe compared to how they used to. But he has an interesting childhood, saying that he flunked out of high school. His family didn't take it well, got kicked out pretty young, has had to figure it out on his own, which kind of is a similar, not exact situation, but Madison also has kind of a rough childhood as well, where her mom was on drugs, her real dad was out of the picture, her stepdad passes when she's in the 8th grade and has essentially had to be the parent for her mom, says that she loves her mom, but has a lot of empathy for her, was also bullied in school and also had a glow up. So this is a lot.
My first impression of her was that she was trying to put her whole life on the table in one conversation.
It was a lot up front, yes.
Because she talked about living in India, living in France, living in Jordan. And I said she loves to talk about herself and her experiences. And then she talked about, the dark side of her childhood. So at this point, we see Alex almost trying to relate. Like, oh, yeah, I also had a tough childhood, although his was not, I don't think as destructive as hers was, but still, getting kicked out at a young age because you're not successful academically and because you have ADHD is a lot for any child to endure.
Yeah.
So that's Alex and Madison. Oh, did I show a picture of them?
No, not
Okay.
yet. And something that she said in this date, and I'm bringing it up for a reason, uh, is that she says that the most important things for her is the emotional and intellectual connection that she has with a person, which I said, okay. But if we were to pivot towards her interactions with Mason, which we could talk about now, I got just a different vibe in how she connected with him. So,
Okay.
thoughts on Mason, 32-year-old cinematographer.
I didn't think too much of him in the first episode. He didn't say much. Honestly, they weren't really talking about much this season so far, anyways. So they seem to bond over being creatives. He's a cinematographer, she's an artist. And then, she talked about her mom and feeling distant, but also looking for someone with a good family dynamic because that's something that I guess she lacked.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I took away from their interactions, I think it was with her, was this love for the Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
And he said he wasn't religious, and I think she did mention that she was raised more religious, but she mentioned that with Alex because I think she, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but she mentioned how like religion played a role in her sexuality and sexual experiences. So I feel like I heard more of the religion talk with Alex versus Mason. So
Yeah, yeah. And then speaking of Mason, he also has another connection, which is Meg.
30-year-old
And
nurse.
yes, so Meg was a flight attendant and now she's an oncology nurse or something like that. They they're weird in the same way, and I don't say that as an insult.
Pretty
I think
quirky, but they vibe.
yeah,
They
you want
like it.
somebody who matches your vibe, and I thought I saw that with them immediately. The
Oh
fact that
yeah.
it took them so long to get to any type of real, hey, this could go farther thing was surprising to me. So she says, I have sober high thoughts.
And he does too.
Okay, she's into aliens. And I was like, what is actually going on in this woman's head? Like,
You know she's into that stuff when she brings up the weather control.
and
That's when you
so
know.
and I couldn't tell if he was into it for a while because she was very chatty, but then he seemed very receptive to it.
Oh yeah, because once she mentioned, and I don't know if it was in this date, but the whole loving the movie Her with the AI robot,
Hmm.
I saw the instant chemistry and vibe. Like she's off in left field, but he's with her,
Yeah.
and she's a ball of energy. Yeah, that's on the
Mason
screen we're
and
showing.
Meg.
Yeah. She's a ball of energy, but he likes it. It doesn't seem to be too much for him. And she also said that she's not religious as well. So
Yes.
I
But her
got a
parents
pretty
are.
right. Her parents are, but
They
not
think
her.
she's going to hell and she feels bad that she gives them that type of anxiety.
So I get why these two connected,
Hmm.
especially like they were just ping ponging back and forth, like, oh, have you heard of the pyramids and this thing they
Who
found?
built them?
So
Yeah.
yeah, I yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if we want to continue in this episode. There wasn't much conversation that went on with
Yes.
anybody else except Brittany and Devin,
Oh yeah.
and then Devin and Virginia. So we meet this triangle here, but we don't see them much throughout the entire season at all. Like I'm pretty sure we saw them in episode 1 and then again in episode maybe 4.
Yeah, not much on Brittany, Virginia,
Hmm.
and Devin, which is I guess another triangle.
Okay.
I guess we could talk about Joey and Monica.
Okay, I have nothing much on them except that they bond over the sound of music, which I get it. I love I too love the sound of music, and we'll sit there and watch all 3 hours of it. But that's all that I have on them. And Joey has a very distinct voice. I am surprised anybody fell in love with him.
Ooh.
Like just based on the voice, it's like chalk scraping. It's like nails chasing, scraping across the chalkboard. But
Well,
He seemed nice though.
Yeah, he seems nice, and their energy seems to go well together. The things that I took away from him, I think he's 34 and she's 29, I believe. But the thing that I took away is that he seemed to have a lot of responsibility placed on him young, as far as, his parents' divorce. He made a pretty big sacrifice in not going to college, away to college, even though he had a scholarship. And so I put that he's been parentified, now that we know that word, from a very young age. But seems to be responsible and is even saving for his mom's retirement himself. And so later on, we find out about Monica, her situation. She also has a lot of responsibility on her in terms of being a caretaker. And so even though I feel like we didn't see much of them, I'm wondering if more conversations happened to where they were bonding over that similarity that they may have had in terms of having a lot of responsibility at a young age.
I didn't necessarily hear Monica's as responsibility. It seems like now, because she doesn't have a job, that she just has time to spend with her family, so she's there more. But it didn't seem like it was her responsibility.
Oh, I took it as she's her grandmother's caretaker.
Oh, well, let us know if you even remember that detail.
Yeah, I remembered it as she was off work and it was in between jobs, but has taken on the responsibility of being her grandmother's caretaker. And she felt this sense of maybe insecurity and not having active work. Meanwhile, she's taken on this responsibility, because it didn't sound like she was actively pursuing more work while she's being her grandmother's caretaker. Because he said something later on like, oh, that's admirable of you to make that sacrifice. So that's why I'm like, it sounds like I took it as she was doing this on purpose.
Oh, I did not. I thought that's why she was ashamed of it, because she should be employed, and it's not working out right now, but she's making the best use of that time. So let us know in the comments how you took that. But either way, it wasn't something that came up with them a lot. Before we move on to episode 2, Daniel, who we talked about earlier, the guy who really wants a family, connected with Taylor. He's the guy who wants a family, and he's 5'8" and is stuck on his height. But he connected with this lady whose name is Taylor. And Taylor loses her voice, which was also like nails scraping across the chalkboard, because she's hoarse and talking. But again, he keeps talking about a family and a wife and a mother for his kids. And I just wish we would have gotten more insight on what that looks like to him. Are you looking for someone who stays at home? Are you looking for someone who, is doing the educating of the children, and you're just off working? I want someone to ask what that looks like, because Taylor and some of the other women, it seems, took it as, oh, that's so sweet. Like, he wants a family and he wants but what is his responsibility in that family, and what is his ideal partner's responsibility? I want more information on that.
Yeah, we don't see too much of them, in my opinion, in this first episode. Really quick, I do want to circle back to the triangle between David, Molly, and Lauren.
Sorry. Before you do that, just one more thing about the Daniel and Taylor thing was that they brought up the Christmas traditions and how they really love it. So that comes into play later. Okay. Triangle.
Right. So back to this David, Molly, and Lauren triangle. So they end up having their second dates, which I want to talk about real quick, where in his date with Molly, they talk about how she sounds like a girlfriend he had in high school. He brings up, which I think kind of quickly, because this is only episode 1, the thoughts on sex, talks about kissing, and does she want to take charge versus him?
What things are off limits?
Right. He takes it back to sex and says that he's perfect for each other. They didn't, I think, in their third date, talk about tattoos and how she has one on her butt. So my takeaway is that the conversation is very sexual, sensual. And after this date, Molly tells Lauren she's seeing David.
Yeah, and they also talked about both of them going to Catholic school, and he says she reminds him of his high school girlfriend, which honestly, sometimes the conversations with Dave remind me of a high school boy, so I'm not surprised that he is going back and reminiscing about whatever high school girlfriend he had. He just seems very immature to me, very juvenile. So that's Dave and Molly. And then Dave and Lauren, in their conversation, they talk about how your vision of love comes from maybe how your parents have shown love. They talk about their siblings, how her brother is protective. And then he seems to have a weird dynamic with his sister.
There's something there.
There's something there, and I don't think I wrote this down here, but it seems like he's the black sheep of the family, and his sister is this amazing, like probably high achiever, and so he lives in her shadows, and her opinion just really matters to him because he can never live up. That's the sense I got from him throughout the episodes.
And that his sister wasn't for him participating in this process. Now, it could be maybe she knows her brother and is like, don't get on
Don't go
TV acting
embarrass
a fool.
us.
So at this point, we don't know anything about this lady. We just have to go what he's saying. But it sounds like she has a problem with him being on there. But Lauren did ask, how would I fit in with your family?
How do I impress your sister?
To me, yeah, it's like, girl, you don't get on a hamster wheel for people that you don't know.
She already on it. It's too late, Miosha.
I know it's too late. But the takeaway that I had from that interaction is that the conversations weren't very sensual or sexual. They just seem to be very different.
I mean, yeah, she has an F the patriarchy tattoo.
Yeah.
So she's just a different vibe than than Molly.
Yeah,
A
and
lot of
then
M names.
I think that they ended up having a third date in this episode where they talk about lake life, vacations. And in this part, I feel like he tried to, I guess, see if she had a little party girl in her. And that's where the whole tattoo thing comes up. And he seems to be pleasantly surprised, like, oh, she has another side to her. So,
All right. Episode 2, which wasn't given a whole lot anyway. But also, I think I have my notes for episode 5 and 4 are mixed together.
God.
There was just nothing distinct about episode 4 to me. It all just ran together.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
All right. So who would we like to start with in episode 2?
Let's get Daniel and Taylor out of the way because once again, I don't have hardly anything for them. She talks about her dad, I think it is, being diagnosed with cancer. And how she's, dealing with that simultaneously while being in this process. I think he said that he hasn't had very many long-term relationships, but looks forward to being married. And then we find out a detail in episode 6 where I'm like, like we get the exact time frame
Yeah.
on how long it's been.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So I don't have anything on them at all.
yeah,
Moving
that's
on.
okay.
So I think one interesting couple or triangle is the Devin and Virginia and Devin and Brittany, which I like how the name is pronounced. But I do want to talk about them. So Devin is the youth director, and he matches with these 2 older women who are 34 and 35, I think. One of them went to the same high school as him, but years before. And so I'll pull up a picture if you want to start talking about,
Yeah, so are you going to pull up Virginia or Brittany first?
I'm going to try to pull all 3 of them.
Oh, okay. All right, so we could talk about his interaction with Virginia. She asks, I guess, what about me is different from the women you've had in the past? He says, oh, I've typically gone for athletes, which makes sense because when we see his interaction with Brittany, who is an athlete, they seem to bond a lot over that. For her, she says she's typically gone for creatives, but she specifically came here to date someone different. And she says something really sad. She says, she doesn't ever think that she's dated a nice guy. I'm like,
I don't know that I would have said that to him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You shouldn't be telling a man how you ain't ever had it good.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, if I give you crumbs, you'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I would never admit that. But yeah, so there was that. And then we have his conversations with Brittany.
Yeah, Brittany. He says that, he has so much in common with her. He brightens her day. Brittany is another person who has a lot of energy. In this interaction, he said that he could see himself proposing to her and getting down on one knee.
Mm-hmm.
She shares how she's grew up sheltered. They bond over gospel music. And then something I wrote down that was funny to me, she brings up the whole how like Best Buy and Walmart used to have the headphones in store. And I'm like, girl, he may be too young to remember that. I don't know. I don't know.
You think so? That is funny.
Maybe.
I actually looked up her Instagram. She is way more beautiful than what we're seeing on this
Oh,
screen. When I tell,
really?
yeah, because she
Ooh.
switches her hair up a lot, and she is stunning.
Okay, I'll have to go look it
You
up.
have to, girl.
Okay,
All
but
right.
yeah, at that point, he's leaning more towards like, oh, Brittany could be in the lead, but
Brittany.
or Brittany, but hasn't said for sure.
Yes.
Um,
I like them together, but I could also see them giving like friend vibes because they both play
I got
basketball.
friend vibes.
Yeah.
I got friend vibes from her, and I got from him and Virginia. I don't know what I got. I just didn't get
It was
much of any,
unclear for a while
yeah,
between him and
much of
Virginia.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So now maybe we want to go to our other triangles.
Well,
So,
well, I feel like so one connection that starts in this episode that we haven't talked about at all was Sarah, the 29-year-old nurse, and
okay.
Ben, the 27-year-old account executive. This is
Yes.
their first date, I think.
Okay. Let me pull up a picture while you start talking about them.
Okay. So yeah, this is their I think this is the first time we see them on a date. If I'm wrong, I'm
I
sorry.
think so.
Okay. So they talk about religion and how he grew up Christian. And she says that she's not religious, but she did grow up religious. She says
Mm-hmm.
for her it's just too much hypocrisy. And so a lot of their conversation is around politics, the LGBTQ, so on and so on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, lifestyle. And for her, she expresses that, she would want to be with someone who's open minded, maybe leaning more liberal. She says that her sister is a part of that community. He says it's not an issue for him. He says his faith is his own. But what's interesting is that he said he goes to church weekly and
Yeah.
that he would want his partner to go with him. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a mismatch, and for so long, like all through the episodes, I felt like they were still trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole.
You right. You right.
I thought it was absolutely insane. And I'm like, what is it about this other person that, despite your beliefs and your values being very different, like they kept excusing each other's beliefs. And so it's like, if you can't find common ground in those things now, it only gets worse from here. Like the differences only start to be louder as you go deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
So,
And something we've said before is typically as people get older, they tend to get more into their faith. Not
mhm.
always. And so if he's already like, I go to church weekly, you're on the side of, I don't go to church at all. And if I do, it has to be accepting of all people, meet all
Yeah.
these requirements. And so, yeah, I think that physically they would make a nice looking couple, but I think these just seem to be pretty, they're on two different sides of the table. And I think he seems to be like, oh yeah, I'm willing to be open and flexible. I sense hesitancy even still from her walking away from this conversation. Like she's
Yeah.
keeping the option open, but I still get hesitancy. So
And I'm wondering what is the force behind you trying to make this work. You know, you don't have to leave someone out of this process. Like, you know, you could leave and find someone to date outside of here. You don't have to find your person on Love is Blind. So
yeah.
why are you forcing this?
And I think she asked, well, would you want me to go to church with you? And he
Hmm.
says, yes, like most people would.
I'm
So,
saying.
yeah, okay.
So yeah, other than that, oh, she also asked him, would you go to Pride? Because I don't know
Mm,
if this is the episode that she reveals where she has a sister who is a lesbian. And so
mhm.
this social issue isn't just a social issue for her, like it
They're
is
active.
it's
Yeah.
actively in her life. And he was like, yeah, I would go to Pride. But I'm like, you're lying. Like, and then the fact that you keep throughout the episodes referring to them as that community.
Them people.
It's giving those kids Ashley Love is Blind season 7. That
I'm fine
family.
with those people.
Yes. So it's like if you're not okay with it, like nobody is forcing you to say that that's okay. I just, yeah, would prefer that he were honest.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't have. No, I'm good on Pride. I can support y'all or y'all do what you want to do, but I don't have to be at the parades. That to me, that would have been a fine answer as well. But I think
Maybe they hate crowds. I don't know. It's just something.
listen, for whatever reason, he feels compelled. Which I hope I wrote his age down wrong. I think I wrote he was 27.
He's
Did you
27, she's 28. So
Yeah,
what's the
and
sport? Like, what's the... Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Anyways, so then do we want to go to our... Okay. Oh, by the way, we didn't... Just because it's Taylor and Daniel, you mentioned them, and I said I don't have anything on them. She reveals that she has a Taco Bell tattoo inside of her bottom lip.
Oh yeah,
Which is
she
also
did.
something that
It comes up later. Yeah.
comes up later. So y'all remember that. Christmas and Taco Bell. Okay. All right. So let's do Molly, Dave, and Lauren.
Okay.
So in the women's quarters, it seems like Molly won't shut up about who she's connecting with when she's connecting with them. And so Lauren hears that she also has a connection with Dave, and it starts to mess with Lauren's mind. And I can't tell if Molly's being messy or if she's just naive. I'm leaning towards her being naive.
Yeah, I just got aloof. I got
very
she's
aloof.
not. I think because she found her person, she's feeling confident about the connection for whatever reason. Also, maybe because he was off-putting to other women, because women will talk like, "Oh, can you believe?"
Yes.
What he said, and so I think she also could have been hearing like, "Oh, other women are turned off to him, so maybe he's just with me." So,
And I see him for who he really is. And y'all couldn't see through the awful sense of humor.
yeah.
All right. So let's do Dave and Lauren's date first then.
Okay. So Lauren, I guess this is where she goes back in and she is talking about these big feelings she's having once she finds out Molly's connection with David. She says she's nervous, she's concerned about being vulnerable, for not being chosen. She doesn't want to be hurt. He says that you've changed my day. He said you've changed my mind about who was day one, who was my number one. Yeah.
But he also tells her the other girl, one of the other girls I'm dating, she's so fun and funny. Okay, so what am I,
Right.
chopped liver? And then for her, he says, "Oh, I feel like you would connect with my sister on music." Because I don't know who that person is, whoever she said that she likes.
And in my mind, this kind of gives the inkling of I think Lauren is the safer option that would gel in his mind more well into his family life as well as maybe the goals of having this certain look of a family. And so
agree.
yeah, he
I agree.
her response was, "Oh, I think we should explore all options, but I don't want to hear about it." And I kind of agree. I mean, what's the point? Use your time wisely to talk about who's in front of you.
Because now, what am I supposed to do? Be a clown because she's fun and funny? Like,
And awkwardly listen to it. Like what would you even want her to say? And then he also, I think, kind of conveniently brings up the question around that leads back to sex, the whole
yes.
sex playlist. So I think he's like, okay, she seemed like she would fit with the family, give me this certain image with the wife and kids, but can she maybe get down in the way I want to get down? And her only request is that he makes a new list when it comes to his wife.
A new playlist.
Oh, playlist. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have Dave's dates with Molly. Where Molly, girl, I just want to. She needs a guide, like a life guide or something, because she's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, there's nothing short of murdering that you could do that would make me not want to be with you. Is that the standard these days? Look,
and you
like I'm not close to their age. Is that what the girls are doing these days?
Girl. And why even communicate that so confidently so early on? You do not know this man. Y'all have bonded over fun. Things have not gotten deep at all. And the one area where it does get somewhat deep is how y'all mutually say that he's cheated, or you talk about cheating where he's cheated and you've helped someone cheat.
And we're seeing how he views both of these women, because when she talks about being a homeowner, he's surprised.
Oh, so she's not just, she bought her business too.
Yeah, because guess what? People can be fun and have aspirations and be focused. Oh, what a concept.
And what his response was also interesting. Oh, well, I haven't done that, but I have done this.
Are we competing? What's going on? And then he talks about, well, my dad has businesses and my sister, oh, she's amazing. She's a bad A. I don't know if we can say that on YouTube. But that told me he thinks of Lauren as on his sister's level, and he thought Molly was on his level until maybe the homeowner comment. So yeah. But then they bond again over being not so academically inclined and over the cheating thing. So he's actually cheated, which the way he starts off by saying, it's not really relevant, but, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. And he's
It's
like,
relevant.
I'll never do that again. And girls come up to me when I go to Vegas and stuff like that, but I'm not going to entertain it. I regret it. I'm never going to. The way that he tries to move past it, I'm like, maybe you regret getting caught, but I don't know. It's not giving remorse. And I think you might do it again. And she tries to relate to him by saying, oh, well, I was the other woman when someone had a relationship. So, yeah,
Claims she
I
felt
don't
bad
know.
about it, but I don't know. To me, she's way too understanding of it, and he's way too lackadaisical about the seriousness of cheating on someone. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder why he shared that. Well, I guess I know why he shared that with her and not Lauren.
I
Like,
wrote that down as a note. He
yeah.
shared this with one, but not the other. And I think
Yeah.
it's because she's giving off this carefree, I don't care. You
Get
can
away with
almost
murder.
murder someone, but I won't care. So he feels more open, I guess, maybe to share himself fully
Yeah.
with her.
Maybe. Okay. I don't
Okay.
know. All right. So that was that triangle. Then we have more of Joey and Monica, which Joey is the guy with the longer hair.
Right.
And honestly, if he
Golden
had shorter
retriever.
hair, he would look like the rest of them.
Yeah.
But okay. So this is where she talks about being in between jobs.
Hmm.
So with her not having a job, he's encouraging toward her because, she wants to prioritize the family. And I thought he also moved past that. Like maybe he's a person who whatever she's bringing in doesn't matter, or yeah. So maybe what she's bringing in doesn't matter because he can take care of it. But if you guys are thinking of something serious down the line, those are conversations that either they'll have to have during this season, or when they get married.
Yeah, because the other part too, I think, is sometimes like even if you accidentally fall into a caregiver role, I think removing yourself or pivoting to find another alternative is also a whole other situation. Like it may not be as easy to just be like, "Oh, I'm not going to do it anymore,"
Yeah.
because other members get used to you doing it. There's a host of other things that come with, when you're a caregiver and
Yeah.
what's next. It may not be as easy as you think to just, oh, I'm gonna move on with my life with my husband now, and you've been
Yeah.
doing said thing for people expect it at a certain point. So
Also, very suddenly in this episode, he proposes, which I wish everybody would have put us out of our misery like they did. Favorite couple. Like they were having this conversation about penguins being monogamous, and out of nowhere he's on one knee. I said, "Listen, get your girl and get off our screens. We appreciate it."
yeah, things escalated quickly, and I have nothing else to say.
Not a thing. All right. Next quad that we have. Well, yeah, the only quad that we have, I guess. So we have Alex and Madison, Madison and Mason, Mason and Meg. Too
Right.
many M's.
Lord have
The M
mercy.
season in Minneapolis.
Right.
Okay. So Alex, who is a real estate broker,
He is.
and Madison is the artist. So
Right.
They have a very shallow conversation about cuddling. She has a Bearlian that she cuddles with, and so they talked about that.
Then they have their second date. We can move to that because
Please.
nothing. Yeah. So in this second date, he brings up asking questions about how does she handle conflict. She says she doesn't yell. She grew up with an angry dad. They both share how they've both been cheated on. She says how people assume that she has a little substance and she's just a pretty girl. Another thing talking about appearances when this is Love is Blind. And she also talks about how she's an avoidant and how she runs from conflict. He asks her, have you healed from that? She's like, yeah, I think I have. He says, well, I have an anxious attachment style, and typically avoidance trigger me.
Yeah.
And so
He
at this point, I see all kinds of pause over him. He's like,
You see it, you hear it, and this is where I think he starts to think about her like childhood, and this is where she maybe starts becoming too much for him. Like maybe he wants an easier life than what her trauma allows, or from what his perception is, at least what her trauma allows.
right. Because specifically when he asked her, like, hey, have you healed from this? Maybe they talked about it, but I didn't hear where she's like, oh, I've been to therapy, or I'm actively in therapy, or what have I actually done to heal? My takeaway was her response wasn't sufficient for him to feel confident that she's actually done the work to heal. And then she throws another thing that I brought up earlier, where she talked about how she grew up religious and how there was a lot of shame around sex and how she's had to work past it. So she's put a lot, I think, on the table, and he's just like, how do I actually know though that
Yeah.
you've done the work on these things?
You
What
know,
will I be taking on?
yeah, and I thought it was decent self awareness on both of their ends. One for her to be able to say, oh, I'm avoidant, and this is why my childhood plays a role into this. And him saying, oh, I'm anxious, your avoidant style will trigger me, and that gives me pause. Like, great self awareness. I think she gave him a lot of context as to why she is the way that she is, but I didn't think that would be enough for him to want to move forward, and I thought he was well within his right if he decided not to move forward because of that. It
And
sucks
yeah,
because she can't. It's not her fault that she had traumatic experiences, but if he's not the partner to walk alongside her with that, then he needs to leave so someone else could be.
that, and I think what adds to it is the uniqueness of this whole process, because he said something. He's like, I'm still trying to figure out if I'm attracted to you because of this on the face interaction, or is it because there's something about you that is like the women that I've dated in the past that's pulling me to you, and because they can't see each other because of this experiment, I think he's really trying to figure it out. I didn't get anything malicious from how he was acting about it, and if anything, I'm like, this is kind of how I would expect most people to react, instead of being like, "Oh, it's no problem. It's fine. I don't care. No caution, nothing. Just willing to accept anything." And I think from this, she was kind of triggered in that he didn't have the type of response that she would have wanted.
Wanted. And you see him being upfront and honest with her and not dragging her, like, I came in and you were my number one. Now this is giving me pause. I'm not sure. But then you could see as he pulls away, she wants to like snatch him back because she keeps apologizing, saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't scare you off. And it's like, just realize you're never too much for the right person. So if he's saying these things and he wants to pull away, let him pull away. It's not, you and him aren't the match.
Yeah. And if anything, see it as a good thing in that he's not trying to rush all into something that's going to fall apart anyways. So,
And I do think, in the spirit of maturity, him having these doubts, maybe he should have stepped away at this point too. But That's
I
just
was actually surprised that he kept going.
I couldn't understand it. It was like Ben and Sarah. Why are we why are we still here?
No.
Okay, so we go to Madison's other connection, who is Mason.
Right.
She's saying that she likes both of them. She's like, I really enjoy reading. Do you like reading? And he's like, no, I don't read. He was like, I don't read. I can't read or something. He's like, actually, I can read, but
Hmm.
I just don't do it. And then they have this conversation about Halloween costumes, which
Very surface level.
Mason had a lot of surface level physical conversations.
He did.
He was giving me high schooler too. Maybe not high school, college, like early college, freshman.
Yes, and I think both of them were feeding off of this sensual,
Flirty.
physical, flirty
Yeah.
energy because she ends up offering up something about her physically that she shouldn't have, about her nips being pierced and so I feel like at this point she's way more forward with Mason, but it's both of them. But it's a
Oh
very
yeah.
different conversation than what she's having with Alex. So
Alex.
what's also whenever people are like, I can't choose, I think ultimately you just don't know what you want. Because in my mind, these are two very different people. Nothing
People.
about them are alike. So you're just in the space of not knowing what you want.
And,
Uh
and I
yeah.
felt that he was playing her a little bit because I felt like he talks about her like she's his number one when he's with her, but then it seems like he prefers Meg. So I started to get mixed signals from him in this
Okay.
episode. And then back to the physical thing that he had with Madison. He asked her, "Oh, do you still have your volleyball uniform?" And then she does
Hmm.
something. She's like, "Well, this is the dress I'm in." And then she did something where she starts to twerk, and she goes, "I was twerking, by the way." And he's like, "Oh, you
Hmm.
can twerk?" Like, it was just so superficial. All the conversations. There was nothing. They were too physical for a show that's not based on the physical.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Okay. You want to talk about Mason
Mason
and
and Meg.
Meg?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's do that. So he comes in with Meg and he's like, "Oh, I've never connected with anybody the way I connect with you," which
This show is full of people saying that I've never had this. This is the first. It's the best.
me whole time is the third, fifth, and fourth time in the pods alone. Like, forget the 32 years you've lived before here.
Crazy.
But it was this date particularly was interesting because in his conversation right before with Madison, he had asked her, "Have you seen the movie Her?" And she
Mm-hmm.
hadn't. And then he's talking to Meg, and she brings up the movie Her. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, based on that, you should probably just go with Meg. Like,
And
that's
their
more your person.
conversations are more balanced. Like, yeah, they
Yeah.
talked about the Halloween costumes and
Hmm.
all of that, but
Hmm.
they also talk about more real things, in my opinion.
Yeah, for
Um,
them.
Yeah, for them, that is.
Yeah.
He says that he enjoys their time together, but he shares with her that he's confused. So I will say, when you said like you felt like he was maybe leading Madison on, I think
Both.
both. I think when he said that he was confused, um, I think he was trying to let her know, like, hey, I'm still on the fence here. So I think he may have maybe learned from the interaction he had with Madison and maybe not talk so confidently. Because I do think in that part, he was kind of letting her know, like, yeah, I'm feeling you. Like, we're vibing, we're good. But when I go on my other date, I'm feeling confused because I'm vibing very differently
With her.
with the both. Yeah, with the both of them. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
this was the date where or this episode at least, he asked her how she felt about being married in a few months, and she answered and said she'd be ecstatic, and she gave a very real answer. Then she asked him, and he didn't answer. I noticed he just said, "Well, a big fear was coming in here and meeting people who weren't in this for the right reason." I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
so again, how do you feel about being married in a few months,
Yeah. Still
in a few
more
weeks?
deeper than his interactions with Madison, but still not deep enough, in my opinion.
Hmm. And he said in this episode, I never really got a chance to think of the things I want in a partner before coming here. Red flag, red
Why are
flag,
you here? Why are you here?
red flag. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I think we've talked about everybody.
Yep, that's
All
it.
right. Episode
Three.
3.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's just do. Oh my gosh. All right, Joey and Monica, they meet each other for the first time.
Yeah. What do you think of this interaction? You think they both are happy with what they see?
Maybe they were so giddy, I couldn't tell. There was so
I
much
said
laughter and play.
both of them are goofballs. She says, "Oh, you got the whole Tarzan look." He says, "Oh, you're beautiful."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Oh, can I kiss you?" The best first kiss he's ever had. I say, I don't know. I think he's fine with her. With her, I'm not sure.
Well, she said, I think he's really cute.
You know what?
You think she's
Because
just
of
saying
how many seasons we're in, and we know how people sometimes can get dragged by the internet for being on Love Is Blind, but then not being attracted to their partner. I'm at a point where I'm kind of hesitant, even to go based off what people say.
mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it could be true, or I don't know. It was just a lot of goofiness, and I think they match well in that area.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe let's do Ben and Sarah
Mm-hmm.
and get them out of the way. So this
Yeah.
was when he came back and started talking about that community, these people. Um, so he describes his childhood and he's like, yeah, I would wake up on a typical weekend and my mom would have
Mm-hmm.
my waffles ready and we
Mm-hmm.
would go and play with my friends and then my mom would bring pizzas out. And I'm just like,
It's a summer vacation, he said.
the way he's talking about the mom's role is something that I would want to ask many more questions about.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like she's a server.
Yeah,
No
more
offense to
more
her, because I'm sure she was
traditional.
more than that. But the way he described her in that moment was giving server, is what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
more traditional setup, and they haven't even broached that conversation. But my takeaway is the reassurance he gives on the whole that community doesn't seem convincing, and it's fine. It's just y'all aren't the right
Yeah.
fit. So
So we don't see them much this episode unless I'm
nope, I don't see.
okay. So
Yeah,
we'll save them for episode 2. All right, and then Daniel and Taylor, we don't see much this episode.
her voice is kind of back. That's all I wrote.
Yeah, and she he said something that seemed sweet in the moment, but he said, she had a fear of ending up alone, and he said, someone like you will never end up alone. Like, don't ever think that even if it's not me, someone is gonna match with you because you're a great person. I thought that was really sweet. Anyway, all right, so the people who we really have things to say about this episode are the triangles, and then the quad, the triangle, and then actually the quad and the triangles, because Devin and Brittany and all of that. So,
yeah. So let's do Devin, Virginia, and Brittany because that's more
okay.
simple. Yeah.
All right. So in the pods with Devin and Virginia, she says she's never dated anyone like the people in the pods. He says to her, hey, I'm feeling something here, but we need to go deeper. I feel like you're not telling me much. And if we're going to consider marriage, I need to
Hmm.
know more about you to be able to propose.
I agree. I feel like I don't know much about her either.
No, at all. And
No.
she still didn't say anything
And
much
she
this
still
episode.
didn't say nothing.
Okay.
Still
So
didn't
then we
say.
have Brittany and Devin who seem to be
Hmm.
vibing a little bit more. He said that the guys in the quarters said she's
Hmm.
the perfect girl for him. And they seemed,
Hmm.
I said Brittany was enjoyable to watch. She was the most personality we saw
Hmm.
this entire season.
I agree.
But that's
Yeah.
all I have on them,
Yeah.
really.
Once again, their dates are lighthearted. Still haven't delved very deep here. The only thing that I had was that he says he has 3 adopted siblings, and I think he has 1 biological sibling. So he comes from a big family. That's all I took away. So
Okay. Cool. Right. So Meg, Mason, Madison, Alex. Who do we start
okay.
with? Alex and Madison?
Yeah, let's start with Alex and Madison on their first date where she gives him Berlin, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so to me, that was like the first show of like, oh, you're my number one.
She wants him. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I hate that it's coming after he's pulling away and now she's trying to find ways to reconnect with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I hate
Yeah,
that.
he does apologize for shutting down. And he's ecstatic to have the bear, says that he's been showing it off to everyone. Um, in the second date, she's expressing how much she's into him and
Gushing.
yeah, and how she keep this in mind, only wants to focus on him going forward. I'm saying that to keep that in mind for a reason. Then she says, because of situations as a child, she learned to disassociate from her body. She loses track of time. He asked, like, well, how do you think this will affect the relationship? And she says, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I don't think it'll be a big deal. It's just a me thing. And I said, well, if you're living with someone, it will affect them. Like, yes, you're an individual, but if you're in the household, it'll affect the kids. It affects everything. Heck,
Yeah.
even the dog. If you lose track of time and don't feed them.
And all I think he's hearing is, I'm not a good partner for you. Even though she's consistently trying to prove that it's okay, I don't even think you'd notice it. No, he would. But so again, surprised that he kept going through the dates and that she kept on trying.
And I don't know how, maybe naive is it the right word, but if someone is self-aware enough to be bringing up attachment styles and like certain conversations, just anticipate that they're going to think like, oh, how you are as an individual will affect me in a relationship. Like, in my mind, I was kind of surprised that she was surprised that he would
Yeah.
see that as, yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then we go to her date with Mason, which they don't talk about anything. She says, I'm feeling carnivorous because they're eating some type of food. And he's like, oh, that's the hottest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Go back to college, folks. He talks about how he's never been the one to break up with people. He's always been broken up with because he always tries to figure out why the relationship needs to work. And I can see that from him because he's keeping these two women trying to figure out why each of them would work for him, but it's not. Neither one of them really is.
Yeah. In this interaction, she also says that she knows who his other connection is and how giddy she is about it. I want to pivot to also when she was in the women's quarters. She said she made a comment about how she likes Alex, but Mason says all the right things. And she likes how with Mason, how they can go back and forth between fun and serious combos. And so, I don't know. She in the date with him says that, don't feel bad about, dating other people. She's fine with it. He says he has stronger feelings for her. Says that he knows that it's a make or break situation right now. And at this point, it's like, well, both of y'all are entertaining other people as well. So.
And I think this was her way of letting him know you're not my number one. Because she says, even though she could have just come right out and say it, but she says, I'm thinking about Meg and it'll crush her because you're her only connection. So it'll really crush her if I, decide to move forward with things here. And I think had Alex been giving her the reassurance she wanted, she would have already broken up with Mason.
I agree. Yeah. She also says that she's getting more affirmation from her other connection. And I'm like, are you?
Where? Did you make that up?
Yeah. I was not seeing it at this point, and you're right. She does not tell Mason in this interaction, which I think she should have, that she was going to focus on Alex, regardless of if her and Alex would work out. She's given him the bear. She told Alex she was going to focus on him. She's also telling Mason, hey, I'm getting more affirmation from Alex. So all of this is happening, and you're still not going to say, just break it off with him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so with Mason and Meg, like she is noticing a shift from him where she feels like, oh, he was more excited. And she also says, I miss you to him, but he never says it back. And so I think Meg is starting to get the hint.
And what's interesting is that with Madison, she's going more towards Alex, who's clearly on the fence about her. And Mason is going more towards Madison, who's clearly on the fence about him. So they're kind of doing the same thing.
They're doing the same thing. Hate to see it. All right, and then we can end on Lauren and David and Molly.
Oh, one thing. So something that Mason said when he got back to the men's quarters was that Meg was not his number one. He said it in this episode.
I didn't catch that, which is so funny with what happens later.
Back in the men's quarters, he said she's not his top. Not his number one pick.
Yeah. All right, and so let's see. We have the David Molly, David Lauren situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Lauren and David start talking about kids, and he talks about yeah, because you're getting old, which I don't know if it was a joke, but not
It,
funny.
you said David and Lauren, right?
Hmm.
And what's so crazy to me is that he's making these comments, and she's all F the patriarchy.
Hmm. Which one is it? The women. I'm not surprised that the women are doing what they're doing. I think there have been several things in recent history that have shown us that that's, those are the types of women who exist in this country. But I shouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised. It's just shocking seeing it live a little bit, like, wow. So you really gonna go against your beliefs and your best interests just for partnership? Okay, I get it. No, actually, I don't, but I see. I
And
see.
then in this date, he doesn't share that he cheated, um, which I think is maybe he did and we didn't see it. I don't know,
But he
but
said he could see himself proposing. They talk about the
mhm.
household being equal, and she wants someone who can tackle things with her. And, if she can't do it, he can also do it. And I just don't know that that's David, but
From the vibe I've gotten so far, it's not him. But what I will say is, regardless of, I mean, all you could take is a person's word, and you'll never know until the kids come. You're in that situation, and then they have to perform well on the job. So yeah,
I don't know.
well,
I feel like you can kind of tell when they're making the jokes he's making, like, to stay away from it. Like, no, you don't
yeah.
fully know until you're in the moment. But sometimes people hint, and I think he's given enough hints for
Mm.
me to not even want to try with him.
Yeah. I will also say too, he's also giving different vibes, like even with
Molly.
Molly, which we
Hmm.
can kind of switch to that because
Yeah, yeah.
it in my mind goes hand in hand. Oh, wait, one thing. He said Lauren isn't who he usually has gone after.
Hmm.
And I wanted to know, what does that mean? Who have you usually gone after?
Well, when Molly says that she was a dancer, he's he says, like, he seems very excited about that.
Right. So anyways, back to David and
Molly.
Molly and this whole lifestyle thing. What I thought was interesting is when they talk lifestyle, she talks about like, hey, I'm not home till 10 p.m., 9:30. I'm not gonna be the one to cook dinner. I see you when I see you. And so he's like, oh, love it. I don't have to entertain you. I don't have to babysit you. And I'm thinking in my head, we're getting two different versions of this guy. Are you looking for the wife and mother of your children to be an active participant in the household that you'll be a partner with, so you claim? Or are you looking for the person who is like, oh, I'll see you when I see you
Hmm.
type
Hmm.
of energy? So I different vibes.
Yeah. Also, he said that, well, we're not doing serious emotions like the other people. We just have fun. And I think that is telling, like, that he doesn't see marriage with her. And she's going along with it, I guess, to seem more amenable, like, more carefree,
Mm.
and, oh, I don't want to put pressure on things, to try not to ruffle feathers. But I think she's doing herself a disservice if that's what you want, if that's what you came here to get. And he's saying, oh, I like that we're not doing all the serious things. Well, maybe you need to leave and find you somebody serious, sister.
Yeah, but then
So,
she also hasn't had a boyfriend ever. So maybe this is what she's comfortable with. Something she also said, which I'm like, oh, I don't know. She claims that, she would be okay with being a stay-at-home mom, and she's very much in agreement. I don't know. I just the way that these people change so much within one conversation or depending on who they're talking to, I didn't get the vibe from Molly that
she would want to be a stay-at-home
he would
mom.
want to be a stay-at-home mom. So are you saying that because you're getting the sense that he feels like Lauren would fit more into that role?
Yeah,
But then Lauren, on the other hand, says F the patriarchy.
but supports patriarchal behaviors.
I
To
don't.
be
Okay,
clear,
we're it's
all
confusing.
right.
All right.
That's all I have on them. So we can
Yeah.
move on to episode 4. I'm gonna let you lead because I have episode 4 and 5 together. That's
Oh
how. Yeah.
Lord.
Well,
Okay, so let's start with Ben and Sarah, their first date of episode 4. They established that they're boyfriend and girlfriend, even though they have I think, different views and different priorities.
And this is where they talk about those priorities.
Right. She talks about the impact of the George Floyd situation and how, that impacted her activism, how it awoken something in her, wanted to know his thoughts on Black Lives Matter. To sum up, what I heard was, that's not my fight. That's not my problem. I'm not against it, but that's none of my business.
He said, I stay out of it. I stay out of it. I stay out of those things. Again, with the demonstrative pronouns, those people, those things, like.
Listen, he didn't even vote the last time. It's his business, whatever.
Right. So he's not political he's not political at all, and she's presenting as if she's very politically active.
Oh yeah, she's like, human rights matter,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't affect you directly. I say she wants to be with somebody that's just as woke as she is.
Yeah. But does she know that? Does she know that that's what she wants? And is she courageous enough to advocate for that for herself, or courageous enough to pass up on this person because they don't show those qualities and wait until she can find somebody who is those things,
And something that I thought about is, he is who he is, but then he has his family. And so to me, it's a much bigger thing than even just your partner's stance on it. Like, if this is how you feel about something, just imagine the interactions, the conversations. Like, I don't think that it makes sense that you're on that wavelength and then you marry into a family where it's completely different. They don't even care for it to be a conversation. And then now you're the person that's bringing up all these issues at Thanksgiving dinner, and they don't even want you there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, she says like they would have to have a really long discussion, and despite how unequally yoked they're seeming, she says, I don't think you're actively racist. And I put down, girl, do you know? Like, do you really know? I don't know if you guys have seen this interview with Whitney Houston and Diane Sawyer, but Diane Sawyer says something, and Whitney's like, but do you really know, Diane? Do you really know? And that's all I could see. That is all I could see, where she's like, I don't think you're actively racist. He's like, well, I could just show you who I am with my actions. Your words are telling me enough. Like, yes, a lot of times go by people's actions, but sometimes the words are all you need to hear.
Yeah, and do you want to be the one dragging him along, getting him up to speed?
And how much is he willing to be up to speed? He's saying that now because it's new, but in 5 years, is that energy going to taper off?
I think it's a no-go, but here we are. So next, if you unless you have anything else, I say we talk about Devin, Virginia, and Brittany.
Was that all that happened this episode? Just because
that's all that happened on them. They have the whole activism conversation, and she ends it by saying she doesn't feel like she needs to teach him to care about it. Actually, let's go to Daniel and Taylor, because once again, I don't have much on them.
Okay. Do I even have their names? Let me see.
Yeah. She opens up about, Taylor opens up about wanting to have more patience for her parents. Go ahead.
Yes, because he says, she talks about, if something happens to my dad and I have to leave. And he says, this is when he says something to me that maybe was meant to be sweet, but with what happens later, might be a little creepy. He says, if you have to leave, like, don't worry, I'll come and find you.
I mean, hindsight is 2020. I took it on the surface in the moment because I didn't know. So
because with the show, they'll have to meet each other at some point. So I took it the same way.
I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just opens up about having more patience for her parents as they're getting older, especially the situation with her dad. And I think he's saying all the right things.
I agree.
In the moment. I mean, yeah. One thing she does say that I'm like, girl, you crazy. She said she doesn't have one single reservation about him. I said, excuse me? Like, you maybe can think these things, but ladies, we don't have to say everything we
don't have to say it. Keep it to yourself sometimes. Tell your friends. Send a text to your bestie.
Keep it in the group chat.
Okay.
All right, so
Next.
now let's go to Devin, Brittany, and Virginia, and I say we start with Devin and Brittany's first date.
Okay, so this is where he shares stuff about his injury in high school, yes,
Hmm.
and how he started to abuse pain medication.
Yes.
And then he goes to a doctor, had a surgery, turned his life to God. He was always Christian, but this is really, and Brittany is in tears. She's so
Hmm.
empathetic, so caring. And I love that she didn't judge. And I said, I love their connection. But then she shares something. She's like, okay, we opening up. Let's
Yeah,
open up.
we gonna go. Let's
Let's
go.
be open. So she shares that she had a situationship, because I don't think it was like an actual relationship from what
Well,
she
she said she's
described.
dealt with multiple women.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
yeah.
particular one where the person wanted
Hmm.
something more serious,
Marriage.
and she realized, hey, I don't think that's what I want out of my life. You know, like I
Hmm.
want, I see myself settling with a man and all this stuff, which we're seeing a lot of more conservative values on this season, which people on the internet have been talking about, like
Hmm.
is love is blind, pushing an agenda essentially because of who
Hmm.
they have decided to give screen time to. I don't know, but
Hmm.
discuss in the comments if you care to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so she shares her experience with a woman, and he does not have the same empathy and comfort for her. Although he
Hmm.
tries,
Yeah.
he's very real.
I think he tried. I think he was caught off guard
Yeah,
by it. And I could see him in real time trying to process or maybe even understand,
the wheels
okay,
are spinning.
was it the fact that you just always envision yourself being married to a man, but then
Hmm.
if you're not married to a man, would you still be open to
Open
being
to
with
it. Hmm.
women? And so I just took it as him trying to process it in real time.
Yeah.
But she says, regardless, I would, if I'm in a monogamous relationship, that is who I'm with. He asked her the question of, oh, well, so are you still attracted to women? And I'm like, yeah, she never said she wasn't attracted to women. So I made the assumption that even if she was to marry a man, she would
Hmm.
still be attracted to both
Yeah,
women
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and men. And so she shares that she would have loved to, I guess, hear that he didn't care about it or that it wasn't a big deal. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have expected that immediately. That's just me.
The response he gave.
Well, yeah, with anything you share, whether he was sharing his story about the pain politician, like whatever you're sharing to someone that's heavy on the deeper side about things that have happened to you, I think regardless of what it is, you have to give people a chance to process it and say, "Hey, I hear you," and
Hmm.
give them the opportunity to decide like, "Hey, is this going to work for me?" Sometimes people who are like, "Yeah, I don't care, I don't mind." It's like, "Have you had a chance to process what I just said to you?"
Hmm. Hmm.
And maybe how this may show back up in the future or affect the relationship. So I could actually appreciate how Alex in the moment was in his situation with Madison wasn't overly responsive. You're just taking it all in and
Hmm.
not giving false reassurance
Yeah.
so quickly and then have to take it back once you go sleep on it. And you're like, actually, nah, that's not gonna work for me. So
And she was
I
understanding, I thought. She was like, this is
she
what I would have
was.
wanted to hear, but also you're processing and I can't take that away from you. I think she was great.
And I know something I've seen in other comment sections, where people are like, oh, people should be more understanding of maybe people having different lifestyles or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. I will say, I think sometimes that there's a double standard.
Hmm.
Like I've seen where men are maybe bisexual or they like
Mm.
want to go back and forth, and it's like, oh, absolutely not. I would never be interested. But on the flip side, there's this expectation that maybe women
Hmm.
can be bisexual and it should be more readily accepted. So,
I see
um,
that. I don't
I
know. I think if you're deciding who your lifetime partner is, especially within 10 days and you haven't seen them, I would err on the side of I'm not understanding nothing because whatever you're telling me, it could be 10 times worse. But not, and I don't say that in relation to Brittany,
yeah.
because obviously I think she was a joy to watch. But I just say that in general, like this is a huge decision. Like I
Oh
know
yeah,
it's entertainment for us, but
I don't think I think people, no matter what it is, whether it's the lifestyle or finances or whatever it is. I think you have to give people the opportunity to process it and just decide if that's what they want for them or not. I didn't see it as a bad thing. Even if he had shared something with her, it's like, okay, well, it can't be all this pressure on her to accept whatever it is that he said. Like, this is their life,
Yeah.
their potential marriage. And so, yeah.
All right. And then Devin and Virginia.
Yeah, so he opens up by saying, oh, I feel like you're holding back. We need to open up. She says, oh, well, I'm shy.
I'm timid.
That's a girl. Stop whispering. I feel like I still really don't know her. She says that she's gotten away with not being vulnerable. He opens up about the basketball situation and the pain pill addiction. She's very supportive, but I still don't hear her say anything about.
But she does talk about how, the importance of him finding God, and that she would want someone who prays with her and who has that strong relationship. And so I think maybe they have some type of bond over the religious aspect more so
I
than
can see that.
in Brittany.
I can see that, but I still feel like I really don't know her.
He was like, yeah, but we don't know her.
Yeah, and only because he's like, let's get deeper, let's get more vulnerable.
Yeah.
But maybe what she said suffice. So
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and then we have our Madison, Mason, Meg,
And Alex.
and Alex. Yeah.
Okay. What do we say about these ones?
So let's start with. Oh, go ahead.
No, is this is the episode where he says that he's committed to Madison. To her face. Well, to her behind the wall.
Yeah.
And said, you're the person that I think about. And she's like, well, that's elusive. I felt like she was being a little cold towards him.
Not only was she being cold, but the look on her face when he said, hey, I want to commit to you, she did not look excited about it.
Yeah, she's keeping him around. Like they have these sexual conversations. She talks about how she was in Bible quiz, but she's just keeping him around. So
yeah, she says, oh, I appreciate you affirming me like that. He's her number 2. So if you go back to episode 3, you had already, here's another interaction you've had with Mason after you already told Alex that you committed to him.
Stop seeing him. Why are we dragging us along? I'm offended. Why are you dragging us along in the pods? Okay.
And remember, she was not excited to hear that he was claiming he was committed to her
at all. All right. That's all that happened with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And then let's do Meg and Mason.
Okay.
Their first date.
All I have is that Meg says she feels like he's holding his cards close. And I said it hurts me to see these girls beg for validation.
I know. But she lets him know, like, hey, I don't want to be second pick. If you're connecting with someone else, just let me know. There's an opportunity where he could have let her know.
But did not.
All
right. And then we have Madison and Alex.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So immediately she comes into the room. Different energy than what we saw with Mason. Oh, I've been waiting to talk to you all day.
Yeah. Is this where she says, like, oh, her first date didn't go good?
She says something like that. And she tells him he's her number 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even though she missed the opportunity to break things off with Mason.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she tells him how she wasn't that into her first date. Why are you going back and telling him?
And was this where she said who it was?
I don't think she did.
Okay, that was episode 5 then.
She just says, "Oh, I know that I want you." Yeah, and I just wrote that they're officially together at this point. Their boyfriend and
girlfriend, Alex and Madison. Okay. Now we can switch to David and Molly. See, this is why my episode 4 notes, because that's all that happened in episode 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so David and Molly. So I said, why does he keep talking about how he was on the first day with the other girls? Because he keeps bringing up, I think some of the girls were offended and this, that, and the other. And he and Molly talk about the type of ring that she would be interested in.
Why are you talking rings when you claim you haven't decided? This is leading her on. You could tell she's clearly excited about it. And he says that he likes that she hasn't put any pressure on him. I think Molly maybe thinks that it's going to give her more points
Get
by
her
being
chosen.
easygoing. Yeah. The easy girl.
But he cares so much about women's looks, but he doesn't want a woman who is interested in a nice ring. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to be shallow all the way.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. He was like, oh, I don't want one of those look at me rings. Meanwhile, you claim that you don't mind being with women who've had cosmetic enhancements.
yes, and it probably prefers it at this point because he talked about how it's distorted his view of women who, are yeah, who have not gone through any
Yeah.
procedures. All right, so I think I said that's the type of person when he said the whole pressure thing. That's the type of person who now you have to never put pressure on them, because the second you put
Mm.
pressure on them for other things, it's going to be like, oh, you've changed so much,
Yeah,
and
you've been so easy.
right, I don't like how now you're putting pressure on everything. So that for the rest of your life, you just got to be nonchalant Nancy.
Mhm.
Like, and that is too much pressure because there are going to be other things that you care much more about. So, Molly, girl, Molly, you in danger, girl, or whatever the quote is. Okay. Then Lauren and Dave,
Oh yeah, she's spiraling at this point because Molly told her
because
that
Molly won't
David
shut up.
is her number one. Not only did Molly tell David he's her number one, she went and told Lauren he's her number one.
Unknowingly. So she didn't know Lauren was the other connection, just for those
And
who
that
listen but don't watch.
and at this point, Lauren says, "Oh, if it's true, I don't have to be here. I don't want." Oh no, no, no. This isn't her date with David. I'm sorry. So David and Lauren's date, she's spiraling, and she lets him know, "Hey, I don't have to be here. I don't want to, get caught up in this." And he's like, "Oh, it's all this girl drama." It's like, yeah, because you're talking about rings with one, meanwhile telling the other that they're your number one connection.
And can I say, I hate how he's always like, yeah, I like girls who, and girls this, and these are women, okay? Grow up. This is not junior high. Stop calling them girls. Is that all
Right.
for episode 4?
That's it.
Okay, episode 5. Do you want to just start
Yeah,
with these
wait,
two?
I can double check to be sure,
Because,
but
I don't know.
yeah, so we talked about it's just so many episodes, y'all. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, well, let's run through 5 and 6. So,
Yeah.
what happens is, with this whole triangle of Lauren, Dave, and Molly,
Okay.
you know, Lauren isn't sure if Dave is being manipulative or not. Like, she's like, why is Molly so sure that Dave is going to break up with me today? It must have been
Oh
something he
yeah.
said. And then in the men's lounge, Dave is talking about how, oh, yeah, I care so much what my sister thinks and this, that, and the other. When he sits down with Molly, he says, oh, my head is spinning going between these dates. And he starts crying. Crying, although the tears are not in the room with us. It's all sniffles. That's it. And so he starts crying, and Molly's like, okay, you're going to have to say it with your chest. What are you trying to say? Are you breaking up with me? Like, what is next? And he couldn't make a decision about that. Then he asked her, why are you so cool about this? Why do you want her to be so stressed?
Well, I think so. Before that, he says, "I have a deeper emotional connection with Lauren, and I could see a future with her." And she's like, oh, "Okay, cool." And then he's like, "Oh, well, why are you so cool about it?" But then she circles back and is like, "Yeah, but I want you to say it more clearly." And he's like, "I thought I said it."
Well, I will say he was beating around the bush.
He
Like,
was using a lot of words.
she was asking questions and having to pull it out of him. So to be fair, he wasn't saying it with his chest.
Yeah, he said it, but not as clearly as he should have. But yeah, what's interesting though is that when she goes back to the women's quarters, she makes sure she lets Lauren know promises were made because there was a swing. It was, hey, rings, and she's feeling confident that he's gonna go dump Lauren. To actually, no, girl, I'm going with Lauren.
And I will say, I thought, one, right after that date, she goes into the quarters and it's only Lauren there. So it's almost like a forced conversation between the two of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was the worst time for something like that to even be happening. But I still felt like Molly tried to be sweet about it. I thought she was really nice about, I do want things to work out for you, even in her pain. I don't think she was trying to be a jerk about it. Like,
I will say, so her energy, and I don't know why she was trying to come across kind of like tough and I don't care to David. Because if you notice, like she breaks down a bit when she goes back to the woman's quarters. And not to say that I wanted to see her crying in front of him, because I don't think that they would have been a good match, anyways. But more so, I think David's impression of her was kind of one thing, and her being like, I don't care. I can go either way. Okay, cool. Say it with your chest. Then she's like super emotional. So there was almost like this wall she had up.
it's embarrassing. Like, honestly, I would cry based off embarrassment. Like, I was so confident
Yeah.
that this man was going to choose me, and now I have to, what do they say? Eat crow.
I think she was confident, but she also kept saying along the way, well, choose what's best for you and do. I think she was right in her emotion,
Yeah.
but it was almost, I think she was on this whole easygoing, I could go either way. And I think for him, he was kind of like, wait, I swung very far the opposite way. Like, why? Oh, you're cool about it? Okay.
And this is where we learn, don't try to be easygoing just because, like, if you feel a way and if you have demands and if you have requests, like, make them. Don't feel like, oh, if I want less, then I'll win the prize. No, if you say that you want less, people will give you even less than what you asked for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just how it works. So,
Yep.
all
So,
right. And so Lauren is happy. I don't know why. She has not won any prize. But, he tells her, I was crying for an hour because I was terrified that you and I would work out. I don't want to be with anybody who says I was terrified that this is actually going to work, like in this experiment after 10 days or less of knowing you.
I would have expected like, oh, I was deeply emotional because I had to break up with someone where I had led them on. Be honest about it.
It terrifies me that this is going to work. Okay, so how are you going to be in it with me if you're so terrified?
It doesn't sound like this guy has had a serious relationship. I don't know
Ever.
what he's been up to, but he's been maybe just out there playing around, and now it's finally hitting him. You're going from playing around to having a whole wife. He doesn't. I need you to be more confident in your ability to be in a committed relationship. Yeah,
Say
this
that.
process is crazy,
Say
but
that. Yeah. And then, he brings up that his sister might have a negative reaction. And she's like, well, this is your choice. This is your life. All the things, girl, pack that up because it doesn't sound like it is.
and he seems to be very impacted by his sister's opinions,
Opinion.
thoughts,
Yeah.
and it's the one thing. I mean, obviously, you can't always help the family you come from, but if he's emotionally swayed by this sister and he keeps bringing it up, why would you want to marry into a situation where the thoughts, the feelings, and opinions of another person is impacting how your spouse may feel about you or how they show up in the relationship or their level of confidence and what y'all have going on?
Yeah.
Sound like a
Anyway,
headache.
do we want to do Devin, Brittany, and Virginia?
Yes.
Okay. So in this episode, Brittany and Devin come back together. It seems like Devin was intending to end things with Brittany, but she ends things with him. She's like,
Yeah.
I think you are more reserved than I could deal with in a partner. She didn't say it like that, but she was just saying, like, I think there
He
are
said
more
too rigid.
restrictions that come. Yeah, you're more rigid. That's the R word. You're more rigid than I would want in a partner. And I know you're talking to Virginia. I think she's amazing. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. But I know that a partnership with you doesn't work for me. It was so amicable. It was great.
It
That's
was.
how it should happen.
It
She
was.
didn't waste her time. She didn't waste his time.
And they seemed to be aligned. It was just a matter of who said it first. So,
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so they're done. And then this was the episode where things kind of blew up a little bit for the Mason, Meg, Alex, Madison
Oh,
quad.
we miss Virginia and Devin real quick.
Oh, sorry.
They exchange gifts.
Mm-hmm.
She gives him her grandmother's ring,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that he would use to propose to her, and then she gives him, or he gives her a passport cover.
I don't remember.
I don't know. They gave each other gifts.
They exchange gifts. That's literally that's all I wrote. They exchange gifts. Okay.
Okay.
And I think we had Ben and Sarah meet up in this
Ben and
episode.
Sarah, yeah.
Ben and Sarah met up. It didn't seem. Well, wait, hold on. There was
He's
more because they came back from the conversation,
They were talking about the activism again,
talking
and
about
him trying
activism,
to reassure her,
and she
saying that he,
said, "It's not like we have opposing viewpoints." But this whole time in the women's quarter, she seemed so unsure. But when she gets with him, it's like, I don't know. All of that goes out the window. So she tells him she needs reassurance that he will educate himself. He says he believes they'll be on the same side with these things, but he doesn't say that the same side is her side. So there's that. And then a proposal happens. So it's like, okay, whatever.
okay.
We'll see how long this lasts.
Let's talk about this reveal. My takeaway is he sprints to her. Clearly, he's very excited. She walks up. She wasn't smiling initially, but then they start to kiss. Says, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You're handsome." I say that they're a nice looking couple from a physical standpoint, but I can't get past this whole conversation around politics and activism to get excited about it.
And I don't think we'll see the politics and activism come up for at least a little while because the way she was like, "Oh, let's look at us in the mirror." I think they're both obsessed with how they look as a unit. And so, but I also put that color of that dress did nothing for her. I wish she would have worn a different color, but it was like this sage green that just looked.
I don't even remember it.
Yeah, it just was not a match for her, in my opinion. Okay.
And you want to quickly talk Daniel and Taylor? They exchange Christmas gifts.
Okay.
They talk about their insecurities, their bodies. They talk about social media, how present they are or aren't. We'll put a pin in that.
Well, actually, yeah. So she gives what her Instagram handle is to him, and she's like, "Why do you follow me?" And he's like, "No, I would remember if I followed you because, I usually remember people's like handles and stuff like that." And then they're asking each other, "Oh, do you post a lot?" What's interesting though is he said, I think he gave her a Christmas stocking or something, and then.
They're both obsessed with Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he says, "Oh, I want a Christmas stocking that has a T on it, a T for Taylor." And she goes, "Oh, I already have one." So the fact that he brought up that little detail, I think, in the end, struck me. Yeah, and then they talked about there being just so many coincidences between the two of them.
I think for me, like if I met someone random, this is a random interaction in my mind. I wouldn't think to ask like, "Oh, well, do you follow me?" Maybe because I don't have a bunch of random people following me. I don't know
Yeah.
how many followers she
has a
has,
lot.
but I just wouldn't think to ask somebody, well, "Do you follow me?"
She has a
Follow me.
lot.
Yeah, that's
I
what
would
it
say.
sounds like.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Anyway, so that's them. All right. So finally, we can go into the quad, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess this is where everything blows up with Madison, Meg, Alex, and Mason.
Yes.
Okay. So Madison and Alex, this is where she discloses that her other person is Mason.
Okay.
And she talks about how he said she was number one. And he's committed to her. And he's committed to her. She not only says this to Alex directly, but then she says it to like women in the lounge as well. And what makes this awkward is that Alex knows it's Mason, but he doesn't tell him. And then in the lounge, they're interacting a lot. Like when Alex and Madison say, "Oh, we're girlfriend and boyfriend," and Alex comes back, Mason's the one there like congratulating him, and Alex is just kind of like accepting the congratulations, kind of having the upper hand on him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have much on Alex and Madison on this episode.
Me neither. But this was the episode. Was this the episode where they broke up?
Yeah, so this is what I have on Mason and Madison. So at this point, this is their first date where I think Madison is going in with the intention to break up with him. And Mason, I said, I wasn't sure on what he was going to do. Because I think he was maybe getting an inkling that she was having a stronger connection with Alex, given how Alex was coming in like so excited about how his dates were going. So she basically says, like, hey, this isn't our story and I'm moving forward with someone else. His follow-up was, when I told you I was committing to you, I, in so many words, maybe wasn't sure, didn't mean it, and it was unfair to both people that I was seeing. She looks confused.
She was offended.
And she's like, why would you say it if you didn't mean it? And so I get that she's like offended that he's taking away something that he promised to her, but she already was going to break up with him.
So it doesn't matter. It's a moot point.
In my mind, it didn't matter. She says, well, Meg and I did talk. And, you tried to keep the two things going at once, but you may have lost both. Ooh.
And where did she and Meg talk that Meg said that? Because I was like, I didn't see it. I must have missed that.
I think she was just alluding to the fact that Meg was so excited about him being her number one.
Yeah, but that's not even her place to say.
It's not. I agree.
I was confused by that. I did not want to do this because I'm like, I did not miss something after watching this boring episode. I went all the way back and I'm like, I don't see a conversation between the two of them. So, yeah. Okay.
But she was saying that, but didn't you, I said, but didn't you do the same thing? So it doesn't make sense at this point that she would be as offended as she is. You went in to break up with him. You yourself 2 episodes ago committed to Alex. You kept dating Mason knowing he was your number 2.
Yes.
And now you feel away. And now you have, I guess, the audacity to basically say like, oh, you're going to leave with nothing. I kind of almost took that as a threat a little bit.
Yes. And so she goes back into the girls' lounge and she tells that to Meg. And so Meg is like, I have to decide what it is that I want to do. So the episode ends with Meg and Mason having a conversation where he's like, I promised you were my number 1. And she's like, I wasn't yesterday. And then we start episode 6, which is the last episode.
And I don't understand why Madison was so salty about, I guess, why are you salty about, I guess, his follow-up was, oh, well, go.
You know why? Because sometimes with women, with men, with everybody, right? Even though you don't want somebody, you still want them to want you. And that was the vibe that Madison was giving me.
Yeah, it's like, okay, y'all both were stringing along other people and the pot calling the kettle black. Next.
So, just so that we could keep this brief, I'm gonna keep my ting brief. Meg pretty much tells Mason, because I wasn't your number 1, it's not going to be me and you. And I have to walk away from this. So they ended and he regretted choosing Madison over her and all this stuff. So that's the end of their storyline for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We can end with Daniel and Taylor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. So then since we picked up with Mason and Meg, you want to do Madison and Alex as well?
Sure.
So I want to say at some point, I think when Mason went back to the men's quarters, he let Alex know, the girls have been talking. Things are getting messy. And I wrote, at this point, Alex is going to break up with her.
He was just looking for reasons, though.
He's out of here.
He's been looking for reasons since she said she was avoidant.
Yeah, I say, he found out that she's messy as well. He's done. Not that I think he had other reasons, but I said at that point, I knew for sure. I'm like, poor girl out here giving threats. Meanwhile, she about to get broken up with.
She was so, She was,
So anyway,
and I didn't like how she also tried to make Meg break up with him. Like, she
that's
was
none of
not
your
content with
business.
just, like, you see how Molly left it and didn't even want to say certain things. She was like, no, I don't think he's not worth it. He's this. Okay, girl. She can form her own
That
opinions. Thank you.
that is none of your business. All of y'all are going to leave the experience at a certain point.
None of y'all
Give
gonna
him the opportunity.
marry these people, at least. So,
I think she overstepped a boundary there.
several.
Yeah.
Okay. So Alex goes into the pods with Madison and they're talking, and she loves her some Alex. She wants Alex to be her guy,
Exchanging gifts at all.
exchanging gifts and all.
So I'm like, dang, did he put the gifts in there and did decide?
I don't know. But
Yeah.
long story short, because this has gone on way too long, just like
Oh yeah.
the episodes, long story short, he tells her, we're not at the place where we can get engaged. Like, I don't think we are at that place, and that's not going to happen for us in these pods. And so she leaves without her person.
But I want to touch on the fact that they get into a little scuffle
Yes.
in
Oh my
regards
gosh.
to Mason
Yes.
because she almost tries to manipulate him into feeling a way that he's, I guess, not supporting her or that he's not talking bad against Mason. And so she's still salty about Mason. Alex just says, hey, I understand your point of view, his point of view. And to be honest, I wasn't there. I don't know all the conversations that happened. She says that your stance on this makes me feel invalidated. And basically, she starts crying.
I will say Alex did drag it a little bit. Like, if I feel somebody offended me, um, even if in the moment I'm wrong, right? And you're my partner, in the moment, I think just listen to what I'm saying. Like, yes, of course you can say, oh, okay, well, I see your perspective. But he was defending Mason, which again, I don't necessarily think what she did and what Mason did was any different, but he was dragging it a little bit. Well, no, because Mason, what if he said, well, that's not what he told me? And I think Alex dragged it a little bit too much. So I could see how if she thought Alex was her partner, how his comments made her feel a certain way. Like, okay, wait, so I think what he did was shady. And now you're telling me like, oh, well, he was valid.
So two things. I think one, he knew he was going to break up with her when he went in there, so he wasn't operating from a place
At
of
all.
being her partner.
But she
So
thought that.
right. So it's unfortunate for her. He already had in his mind, I'm not moving forward with
It's
this. So
unfortunate
there's
for her. Yeah.
yeah, there's that. Because they're operating from two different standpoints. She thinks she's in a relationship and getting engaged. He's like, oh, this woman is not moving forward
Time's
with
up.
me. Right. And then the other thing too is I think imagine from his standpoint, 2 episodes you told me I was your number one. Yet you're in the pod telling me that you're salty about another man switching his stance. So if it were
Yeah.
me, I would understand like, yeah, just hear me out and keep it moving. So that was a misstep if he actually wanted to stay with her. But I would also kind of be like, well, if you decided I was your number one days ago,
Why are you so pressed?
why are you pressed about like you went into the interaction to break up with him, right?
Yeah, the thing,
I don't want to hear about how you're pressed about some other man.
and even with her, because I don't know, pressed, maybe she wasn't pressed, but at the very least, I will say that she came in trying to drag him a little bit. Like, so where it's like Alex said, well, wish him all the best. And she's like, oh, that makes one of us. Whatever he didn't warrant all of that. It's not that
And
deep.
and even in this back and forth, okay, Alex may have harped on it a little too long. Did it warrant the crying? Now he's apologizing to you. Make it make sense. And
I
then
understood why he apologized because he dragged it. But
I mean, I get it, but to me, it didn't. This is what warrants you crying.
because she probably already felt he wasn't 100% in it. And so it's like just confirming things that she
It
thought and
it,
felt
it
before.
gave it
That's why
gave
she's crying.
it gave manipulation. Like, you want him to be on the bandwagon of dragging Mason with you, and he could care less about this man. He already was gonna break up with you, so
She
it's
wants everybody on that bandwagon because that's why she went so hard with the Meg thing, you know? But it just wasn't, yeah, she needs to be a little more self aware in this area. Why the whole Mason
yeah.
thing triggered her so badly. Like, okay, he took it back. Yeah, he's trying to save face. We all understand. Okay, move on.
And she's in the pods with him, knowing the gist of all y'all's conversations was sexual, anyways.
Shallow.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, he breaks up with her. Obviously, she's hurt, and I'm like, dang, girl, you were so confident talking about how Mason was gonna leave with nobody, and here you are leaving with nobody.
Period. Okay, so Devin and Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
then wait, no, Dave and Lauren. Did we talk about them already?
Uh,
No, because okay, so we said in the last episode he
oh yeah,
proposed,
yeah.
but they actually meet up and hug.
What do you think about this reveal?
I don't know. He kept saying like this is nuts. So I don't think she looks
This
like
is
what he
insane.
yeah.
I I wrote the same thing. I think she's okay with how he looks
But not the
because
other way.
I think she asked, "Is am I mostly what you pictured?" And he's like, "Eh." I don't know. I just didn't get very confident from him.
He said, do I look like what you thought?" And I think the reason he asked that was because she doesn't look like what he thought. But then he says that she's beautiful, which again to your point earlier, we can't go off of what these people are saying.
No, he just kept saying, "Oh, this is nuts. This is crazy." Yeah, that's what happens when you get this far in a process when you were never serious about it in the first place. It's given kind of Clay to me. You know how Clay is like, "Well, I kind of signed up and I didn't think it would go this far."
Yeah.
It's given that type of energy.
He was
So,
saying that a lot of the other guys have made plans and they hadn't made plans yet, but he's okay with that. Of course you are because you're not committed to her. Um,
mm-mm.
and he was kissing her a lot.
He
So
was.
there's that. But yeah, anyway,
I don't know.
nothing much to say about that interaction. All right. Devin and
Def-
Virginia. So
mm-hmm.
I thought his proposal was definitely the sweetest. It was so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Pretty thoughtful.
yeah, he said, you know, he still has at first he still had concerns, still hadn't proposed yet. Um, oh, sorry, no, wrong couple.
Yeah, he proposed to her in that last date.
Yes, he
She said
proposed to her in
yes.
the last date.
Yeah. Let's get to this reveal real quick. So I said that there was no kiss for a while.
And I couldn't tell if it was her being timid and shy because in the end she started to come around and it seemed better at the end. But initially it was him complimenting her. It was him doing a lot of talking. Eventually she complimented his eyes. I just couldn't tell if she liked what she saw.
You know, whenever people go for something very specific, at least in this experiment, I'm always like, yeah, that's a red flag. Things aren't gonna go well.
But at the end, she said she feels at peace about it. Like after they had talked for some time, she said she feels at peace about it. And so I said, okay,
Yeah.
maybe we do have somebody to root for. She said, I was sure days ago. I said,
You
okay,
know,
timid Virginia coming out of her shell. So perhaps we'll see.
we never know with these people.
Never know. Okay.
Okay.
Now Daniel and Taylor, and this is it. Whew.
So
Y'all might have to
he
watch this video in segments
I
because
know. Thank y'all for still
if you
hanging in there
still
with
are,
us.
and if you're not, we understand.
Right.
Okay.
So
So,
he proposes to her.
yes.
She says
After they
yes.
both wrote letters, and then the reveal. Let's just talk about the reveal.
First, her dress. Loved it.
Really?
The
Okay. Yeah. A lot of
the
people, because I went
velvet.
to her Instagram too. A lot of people in the comments were like, I loved it. I loved it. And I was like, it just looks like, to me, a
I
basic
liked it.
Shein dress, which it
Yeah.
was from Shein, she said. So,
Oh, she did. Okay, yeah, I liked it. I like the
I
color.
like the
Love
color. Yes.
the fit of it. In this interaction, he's talking about how he still hung up on the height thing, short king season. He says he's been single for 10 years. So I'm like, he hasn't had, once again, it's a lot of people who haven't had any long term or any relationships in a decade.
Yeah.
So you jump straight into an engagement?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of crazy.
Well, you know that season with Deonda and Greg, or what was her name?
Deanna.
From Married at
Deanna.
First Sight.
Mm-hmm.
And she hadn't been in a relationship for a long time. So, you know, I don't want to
True.
write people off because of that.
No. Yeah.
But, okay. So when
But
she
so
came out, she said, well, should we shake hands? That was when I knew something
it's
is
that.
up.
They
Something is
shake
up.
hands. He asked like, "Hey, can I have a kiss?" Oh, and let me give you the ring. It was like she was running off to go
He
sit
was also
down.
dragging, you're beautiful. You look so great. It's amazing. Your looks, your looks. Like, so it was a lot. So,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't think she was feeling
At
on it.
all, but she
Yeah.
was polite, which you know I can appreciate.
Yeah,
She
she
was
was.
very sweet to him. He said, you know, I would think of the coincidences whenever I got anxious, and they would calm me. He kept saying he can't stop looking at her. Then I think he said in his own private camera moment, you know, I'm ready to get married to her in 4 weeks. I'm ready to get married to her tomorrow, right now. And so, yeah, after their reveal, she goes into her quarters and she sits down and is still settling in. The only thing she said was, he is my type. Like, I do go for the dark hair, but he is a little shorter than, you know, I would expect, but still, the type is there. All right. 24 hours later, she's on the camera by herself, and she said there was a gut feeling that she had that was telling her that she had seen him before, but she couldn't place him. And so she thought that she realized that someone had followed her a little bit before the show, and she remembers seeing his pictures, and she saw one that was Christmassy and he was sitting in front of a fireplace. So she was like, oh, I don't know this person, and just clicked off. But that's the image that she kept seeing in her head. And so she feels like with the stuff that she has on on her Instagram, which she says that she loves Taco Bell. She has a Christmas highlight and talks about loving Christmas. She talks about being an RN, family, and faith and friends. She feels like she has enough on her Instagram that he might have known who she was while they were talking to each other.
And that he would have known what she looks
And
like.
that he would have known what she looks like. That's what she said. She didn't say he followed her to the show or anything like that, but that he would have known what she looked like while they were there. And that was unsettling for her. So then she tells him this information. She's like, you know, I think you followed me and then maybe unfollowed me afterwards. Like, I'm not sure, but I remember this picture. And she asked him, do you have a picture where your legs are crossed and you're sitting in front of a fireplace? And he admits that there is no, where you're sitting in front of a Christmas tree was what she said. But he said, I don't have a picture in front of a Christmas tree. I have one in front of a fireplace. And he confirms that it was around Christmas time, that picture.
And that he wasn't holding
He wasn't holding
anything.
a drink. I need a body language expert to examine his reactions, because what do you think about all that has happened? Because I'm seeing two things on Instagram.
So I see them as two separate things. I think one, I'm not confident that he's her type and that she's attracted to him.
Yeah.
It was a very awkward first meeting. Okay, you're nervous, all the things, but like she kind of act like she didn't even want to take a pause to put the ring on, and it was giving a very awkward first impression. So that's in my head of like, oh, she's not attracted to him. One thing. And then the other thing is, okay, if she was attracted to him and she knew like, oh, he could have possibly knew what I look like, would she still be as freaked about it? Like she may be like, oh dang, you cheated the process. You knew what I look like, but you've had time to bond with them. A person could know these things about you, but the personality would still have to click, and you'd have to like what they're saying. They'd have to like what you're saying. So I don't know that it's enough to be like, oh well. It's like you still have to like meet with them, and it's like, what are the chances he progressed so far with her?
Well, I think that's the
Even
problem.
knowing
I think
all
that's the
those things.
problem. Because if you know the things that I'm interested in, and all these coincidences are around the things that I'm interested in, or I'm playing up certain parts because I have prior knowledge, then that's a problem.
I could agree, but I also think there has to be a certain level of chemistry, like to be like, oh well, I like Christmas, you like Christmas. Like, yeah, we could like the same things. That doesn't mean that we would want to be in relationship with each other. I agree. She should have some pause. Like, dang, this could be a creepy situation of if this guy maybe not followed me on here, but he manipulated the situation to where he would match with me so far in the process. But so I see it as two separate things. She's gonna have to evaluate if she trusts him in how they naturally progressed. But because I get the feeling that she's not attracted to him, it's like, okay, girl, are you looking for an easy out here? Like, what's going on? Because people know that the public sometimes doesn't respond well when they know you're looking for an out because you're not attracted to the person.
Madison
And you didn't even
from Love Is
you didn't
Blind.
even get right. You didn't even
I
give
mean,
it a
from Married at First
chance.
Sight. Sorry.
You didn't even go on the honeymoon or even give it a chance. So I'm not saying that she's doing that. I'm just saying it's a peculiar situation of, yeah, I don't think she's attracted to him, and maybe he did put two and two together and know that it was her. And maybe she felt like, well, you should have told me that sooner. So say it naturally happened and he held on to the information. I could see her feeling a way like, well, why didn't you tell me when you knew it was me?
Yes. So
So,
I went to her IG comments and I said, this is how people disappear, get kidnapped, get killed, and everybody tries to act shocked, right? Because not to say that he's any of these things, but I'm just specifically talking about the IG comments that I saw. Someone put in the comments, it should be a compliment that someone went on the show just for you.
but how would he know she
Exactly.
would?
But also, how would it have been a compliment?
Yeah.
Secondly, someone put, so you think you're so special that he did all that just to get to know you? Which she never said, I'm so special that he did that. But, and then the last thing was, oh, you made the poor guy feel like he was a stalker because you didn't find him attractive. Let me tell you something. I can't make him feel like a stalker. Like, how do you make somebody feel like a stalker if they have not stalked you? So here's what I think. I do agree. I don't think she found him attractive. I think the two things can be true. But I also think it is a creepy coincidence. And if it were me, I would not ignore it. Even if I were attracted to him, I wouldn't ignore it. Now, that I can't say for her. Several people in her comments think if she found him attractive, that she would have overlooked it. I'll speak for me. If there's any type of creepy anything, attractive or unattractive, you're in the unattractive category because I don't play that. That's not cute to me at all.
So do you, in your mind, is there any possibility she made this up? I ask only because they both express like, oh, we both love Christmas. Okay, we all have pictures by a fireplace. If he's obsessed with Christmas, it's not a stretch that it could be on his Instagram. Um, and like, is there any part of you that could believe that she kind of made up this story?
And he never followed her.
Right. Like at this point, it's kind of like, do you believe, how much do you believe her version of the story? Because what she's outlining isn't like, as much as this guy is obsessed with Christmas.
But it wasn't just the Christmas that was the coincidence. There were a lot of other things that they had that were that were
I think going through this process, like even Dave said, like, oh, me and Molly are just so similar. Like, it's a thing where as they're getting to know each other, they're like, oh, you're so similar, you're so
no.
similar.
And
So
I
I'm
would say
not,
this was a Me Too season. Oh my God, your dad's name is
yeah,
Frederick.
like
My dad's name's
everybody's
Fred
on this.
too.
So similar, so similar. So I'm not
Exactly.
saying that this is the case. I think for me, I'm just gonna hold until I get more information on exactly like how I feel about her version of the story.
Yeah.
Because she was like, oh well, yeah, you unfollowed me. You followed me and unfollowed me.
And I think
So I
for
don't know.
me, because I there could be a world where she remembered this person or she remembered differently. It could have been a totally different person. It could have been a made up situation. I think it would be very bold of her to go on this show, but bolder things have happened. Like to go on the show, have a whole private moment where you had this, hey, I had a weird feeling and this is what happened a few months ago. Like, because if she's trying to prevent herself from being dragged, she picked the worst way to do it.
Because they don't have access to the phones yet.
No. They don't have access to the phones yet, but I'm just saying, like, if you thought you would get dragged because you don't like this guy and you thought the way was to make up a lie about him following you and you seeing a picture and thinking there's a coincidence, then you're not very bright. So I think that world could exist because, again, not everybody who gets on these shows is the bright. Like, not even people on the show. Just like in everyday life, we're not always the brightest, myself included, right? So you might think, oh, this will work, and it completely doesn't. So there is a possibility that she completely made this up. There is a possibility in my mind where he at least knew. I don't even think I'm gonna put him in a villain category because we don't have that information, you know?
Because I'm wondering, like, is there a possibility where, like, if you have a popular Instagram account within the city, it's not that big, and so people follow you, like, oh, she's cute, or oh, she's whatever.
Remember, I think that's a possibility.
And maybe he didn't remember.
Yeah.
Because even it sounds like she's like, oh, do you follow me? It's like she has a bunch of random people that follow her, and so I'm wondering if he randomly followed her, and maybe over time put two and two together, and his misstep was that he didn't let her know soon enough.
There's even a possibility he didn't put two and two together. So that's why I say I don't want to put him in the villain category. So there's a possibility she lied. There's a possibility he followed and doesn't remember. There is a possibility he followed and did remember and was just like, I'm gonna let it ride out, which, you know, maybe he thought she was an attractive woman and decided to write it out. But
what I will say is, imagine he followed her months ago, as she says. Okay, her bio says whatever. That means in current day, say it was 6 months ago, current day.
Well, she said it was like a couple months.
So 3 months. Two to 3 months. And then he would have to remember, I followed this girl. She's a nurse. She likes Taco Bell. I'm like, dang, like that. We might have a creeper situation on our hands for you to take the time to remember all that about a specific person, and then you're dating within the pods of was it 100?
I don't know. They had more people this year.
Yeah, so I think it was like 132 people total at the beginning. So say 60 something to 70 something men and women. So it's like, dang, that
it's possible, Miosha. Like, do you know how many people, like, with social media, you do deep dives on people all the time, like not just out of nosiness. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't.
You think he may have peeped that, oh, this is the girl, she's hot, so I'm gonna like push this very far to the end. Also, what doesn't help him is all his insecurities around being short.
What if there was something that she has said about it? Like, I don't know, but I think in the social media world, like, as someone who has made friends on social media, like, who have later become like very, very close friends, I don't think it's far-fetched for someone to see a woman or a man who they're attracted to and do a deep dive on them. And like, you have that information stored. By his own admission, he remembers things like that. Like, he's like, I have a very good memory when it comes to social media and who I follow. Those were his words, not mine. So I think all the possibilities exist. But the one thing that I will say, whether it's true, false, or whatever, for the women who are in her comments, this is how creepy situations happen. People ignore it. People don't pay any attention to it, or people blame the person who later becomes the victim. And then when they are harmed, oh, it's a big deal. Oh, that poor woman. Oh, that this. So true or not true, y'all need to be careful how you handle these situations, because there are real life scenarios where, you know, victims were not taken seriously when they acknowledged something creepy. And if she has an inkling, if she's not lying, girl, please don't be lying. But if she's not lying and she has an inkling, you can stop dating somebody for whatever reason you want to date. Nobody else has to agree with you. If you feel like it's creepy, her and anybody else who's watching this, if you feel something's off and that's your instinct, trust it. I don't care if you get dragged anywhere. Trust your instincts. That's
And
how
I
I
think
feel.
based off of their because I think we'll obviously find out more in episode 7 and 8. I think based off their initial interaction, they're not gonna work anyway. So
You think because she's not attracted to him?
yeah, she's not attracted to him. So even that situation aside,
Yeah.
she's not gonna progress in the process with
Yeah.
him. So that's that. Anyways,
All right. We'll
get
see
outta
y'all
here.
on the next episodes. Hopefully they're not as boring.
Yeah, that's it.
Bye.
Bye.